Today we're taking a look at a watch that is inspired by 1970s and 1960s sports dress watches. And I think they pull it off really well. It's actually from a French brand. This brand is actually based in France. They are a Microbrand, and this is their first watch that they've ever made. And I have to say the quality is actually very, very good. Let's flip the camera and take a look at a vintage looking modern watch. So here's the watch. You can see it has a very distinct 1970s style to it. You have a domed sapphire crystal on the front and then a flat sapphire crystal on the back. You have a really beautiful silver metallic dial. It has a sunburst effect in the middle. It's almost like a radial brushing that they did, and that carries over into this blue portion where the actual applied indices are. I'll do close-ups so you can see what I'm talking about. On the outer portion of the dial, you have more silver, and then there are little dots of lume. And then there is sort of like, I guess you would call them dagger hands, and you have a little bit of lume on those dagger hands. I don't believe there is any lume on the second hand. However, of course, we will do a lume shot towards the end of the video. You can see what they have done here is a cushion case. So you have sort of a cushion style case that's very reminiscent of 1970s dress sports watches. So not technically a sports watch. I think this only gets 50 meters of water resistance, but the point is that it looks like a dress sports watch, something that you could wear that's a little bit chunkier than your regular everyday dress watch, but obviously a little bit sportier. You also get a pretty nice profile on this watch, and it is not very thick. So you get a Miyota 9000 series inside. Of course, I think it's a 9039 because this does not have a date. 10.3 millimeters thick. You do get a screwed in case back, obviously a push-pull crown, which has their logo right there. So it's 5.4 millimeters on that crown. So not the biggest crown, but really not that bad. And then of course, the lug to lug is just about 44.8 millimeters. And this is a 40 millimeter, basically almost 40 millimeter spot on watch. So it's a little bit thicker because of the domed sapphire crystal on the front, which is also very slightly raised from the case. But all in all, thickness on here for an everyday watch is really very nice. It's very well constructed. So they say that the watches are actually assembled in China using Chinese parts. The dial is made in Thailand, and they actually enamel this dial. They actually, I believe he said, the owner of the brand, when I was speaking to him, said that they actually dye the dials, not paint the dials. And I think that's what he was telling me, and they have a few different colors that they do, and that it's very hard to do, and they do a good job in Thailand, so that's where they're getting these dials made. I have to say the dial is beautiful. They did a very good job. It says automatic right there, and then there's a rose right there. That is their logo. It looks very nice. Again, I'll do close-ups of it. These are printed on, and like I said, the indices are applied. Now, we will do a lume shot at the end. I don't know how good the lume will be because the area of lume is very, very small. This is a prototype, but I believe that the production will be exactly the same. You have some very nice knurling on the crown, and of course, with the Miyota 9000 series, you could hand wind. This does not have a date. That's why it gets the Miyota 9039, which is the dateless version. You have a mesh bracelet on here, or a Milanese bracelet, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty thick. You have double push release right here to actually remove, and then you have drilled lugs for throwing this on a strap if you want. You don't really need the drilled lugs because obviously you have quick release, but if you have a strap that doesn't have quick release, you do have the drilled lugs to use. You have adjustability on a mesh bracelet. I do like to see this, although in style I really don't love it. It's really not that bad. This is all polished, so it will be a fingerprint magnet, and eventually it will scratch up. So if I were designing the bracelet, I'd rather just have completely mesh all the way through and then not be able to adjust it as well, but that's just me. But then you wouldn't have a double deployant butterfly clasp. It would be a lot different. You do get a little bit of a signature right here. Again, it's that rose logo right there. You can see it's engraved on one side. You know, it's a little bit asymmetrical, not entirely bad, but you know, you could see there's a little bit of a difference there. That's all. Case back, as I mentioned, you do get a flat sapphire crystal, and what they did, instead of signing the rotor, they put their logo. It's etched on the inside of the sapphire crystal, and like I said, a sapphire crystal, flat sapphire crystal on the back, screwed in case back, and I'll do close-up so you could see what it says on there. That's really it. I mean, a good-looking watch, and I think they are charging around $300. I think it's like $337. And it's somewhat of an original design. Now, I would imagine there are plenty of watches out there from the 1970s that look like this, but not many micro brands, not many modern watches are doing this sort of look, especially as their first watch. Usually most micro brands try and go for, you know, a dive watch or a sports watch. This is very interesting, very cool looking, you know, dress watch for a first entry into the micro brand world. This is a French brand, as I mentioned, so they are located in France. The owner is located in France, and then all of the watches are manufactured overseas in Asia, and then I believe assembled in China. So just to note, and that's where you're getting that price. So $337, I think, is pretty reasonable for what you're getting here. Very quickly though, let me throw it on my wrist, and then we will do a quick lume shot, because like I said, this does get lume. Again, I don't know how good the lume is, but we'll find out in a second. Today I have on the Sultan. This is a watch that I just recently reviewed here on my channel. This gets a meteorite dial, really a beautiful watch. Also gets a Miyota 9000 series with a custom rotor. Just a very cool watch. I really love the strap on this watch as well. They did a great job designing this watch. As a meteorite dial, which looks beautiful. So here is the MANIME on my 7.5 inch wrist. I do not have this size, but you can see it wears really thin and it looks very classic, very vintage looking. If I saw someone wearing this, maybe not on this bracelet, maybe on a strap, I would think that this was a vintage watch. All you would need to do is put this on a stretchy strap or bracelet, one of those vintage stretch bracelets, and I would think that this is a vintage watch. I would not think this is a modern watch. And you know, it does have a modern size of 40 millimeters, and then you have basically a 44 millimeter or 45 millimeter lug to lug. So it does wear bigger than a vintage watch. Not many vintage watches this size out there. There are some, but obviously that's the look they were going for, and I think they achieved it, and they did a really good job with it. And all in all, I have to say the quality, the fit, finish, and quality of this watch is very high. They did a very good job. Finishing on the case, you have polishing, brushing, but you have nice transitions between the polishing and the brushing. So you have brushing on the side, but there's a chamfered edge along the case. You have brushing and then polishing along, so brushing on the top of the case and then polishing along the bezel. So the entire bezel is polished. The lugs themselves are basically all polished. In the back of the case, you have some more polishing and then brushing on the case back. A little bit of polishing there as well. But like I said, very nice transitions. Everything feels really nice and then very well finished. Anyway, very quickly, a lume shot, and then we will wrap up the video. So there you go. Lume is nothing incredible, but you have a little bit of an orientation in the dark. You have 2 dots of lume at the 12 o'clock. That sort of gives you a little bit of direction in the dark. Other than that, the hands aren't very liberally applied, and those dots, you know, are going to fade somewhat quickly, but you know, they're hanging on a little bit. The second hand, obviously not lume, so you will not be able to see that this is actually working in the dark. Usually I like to have a little bit of lume on a second hand so you can see that it's working. It's really my complaint here with the lume. I think overall, as a design, they achieved what they set out to do. They made basically a modern vintage watch. There's a lot of vintage feel to it. It looks like a vintage watch. It feels like a nicely made vintage watch that is modern. That's basically it. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog, all one word. There are links down in the description below. One of those links is to Joma Shop. And if you click that link, there are a whole bunch of watches that I have chosen through Joma Shop. And if you buy anything from them, it doesn't cost you anything extra. However, it helps me out here on the channel. It helps me keep going on the channel here. So I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.